The Ford Fusion is the successor to the ill-fated Ford Contour, and the reason this Fusion has stuck around for so long is because it sold well. In the last 5 years alone, they've sold over 1 million of the things. And it's not just here in the US the Fusion is incredibly successful, it's been exported to other markets as well, most notably Europe, where it has quite a special name attached to it, the Mondeo. Now I say the Mondeo has a special name because it's rather well known in British society as a fantastic car, not just for its practicality, but for the performance as well.
And there's raining as you come into chicane, easy to misjudge your braking.
It won the British Touring Car Championship outright in 2000. They have ST versions with 200 horsepower. They have the States version of the ST versions. They are fantastic machines. Over in America, with the Fusion, not so much. We did have NASCAR, which shares 0 components with the Fusion, and we do have the Fusion Sport, which is actually pretty good. And remember those sales figures for over 1 million in 5 years? That's not good enough for Ford, so they are discontinuing production in July of 2020, this year. And the Fusion will get replaced by a crossover! Ta-da! It's called the Fusion Active, to fit your active lifestyle. It breaks your heart. And let's start off with the 2020 Fusion. And a car most of all designed to kill you. Not because it's less safe or anything like that, but because it has so many buttons and dials. On this command control center here, there are so many things I can do. Fuel economy, display, I'm not looking where I'm going, so I'm going to die in a car accident. Driver assist, I can turn the traction control on or off, not that it really matters, because I've tested this thing in the rain. If you manage to get wheel spin, you are defying a law of physics of some kind. You physically cannot get this to wheel spin, because it is 4-wheel drive. And it has bigger tires. 235s all around, which means it can deliver that 245 horsepower very efficiently. And I have a button down here straight out of Fire Command. It's very cool. I hit this S, and now I'm in sport mode. That basically drops it down a gear, increases the red line by about 800 RPM, and gives it extra sporty feel. It does not engage the useless paddle shifters, which is weird, but whatever. Yeah. It does a much better job than I could have ever expected actually utilizing this power. It's bizarre. So, I'm going to be here. I'm not going to be gentle in any way. That was out of a corner. The worst case scenario, accelerating foot to the floor around a corner, and it didn't get any traction loss, any understeer. That is seriously impressive. What is the point of traction control? Let's take a look at some of the other features on this vehicle. It's interesting. First, it's much bigger. That's the nicest way I can say it. It's much bigger than the original car from a decade ago because of that 4-wheel drive system and various safety features, but mainly that 4-wheel drive system. The original car weighed just 3,200 pounds. This weighs just under 2 tons. 2 tons! That's a lot of car. And it deals deals with that remarkably well. I like the steering. I do like the steering a fair bit. It does deal with that weight remarkably efficiently for such a heavy and yet base model vehicle. Remember, this is not the high-end luxury model with all the fancy gizmos and gadgets. This is the base model. You can buy for about, what, 30 grand, I think? Which, to be fair, is quite expensive for a base model four-door sedan. But you do get a lot with it. You get this fancy touchscreen. You get the old-school buttons and dials that do many things. You get the sport mode that does some things. Four-wheel drive. And a 245 horsepower, 220 pounds-foot of torque, inline four. Now, how do they do that? Turbocharging. And that is the main downside of this vehicle. The engine. Yes, it makes 5 more horsepower than the 2010. But, one, it doesn't have as good of a soundtrack. And two, the fuel economy is atrocious. I mean, I'm not the greatest at MPG, okay? I will freely admit that. I am not the greatest when it comes to MPG. But this thing gets 16.5 miles to the gallon. Now, I have only been driving it for 123 miles, so that might go up later on, but it's not going to go up a crazy amount. And a third less displacement. This only has a 2-liter turbo. How do you get a 2-liter turbo to be that inefficient? It boggles the mind. A V6 from 1985 could get 50 miles to the gallon, and this can get 16. I don't understand. However, when you look at all of the factors and all of the features that you get, there is one thing you cannot deny over the old one. It is obscenely fast. I was able to get around 7 seconds for 0 to 60 in the old car. This one, however, thanks to its four-wheel drive and its new limited and its new differential and its bigger tires, it can get a bit more, as I shall now demonstrate with a simple speed test. So I put it in park, first gear, sports. There we go. 50, 60, 70. There we go. Come on. There we go. There we go. There we go. And 100. And the brakes aren't bad either. Brakes aren't bad either. That's not bad. Also, I got 2 MPG while doing that, but yeah. The acceleration is significantly better. I think the 0 to 60 time of 6.5 seconds. 6.5 seconds. That's quite good. That's quite good. That's half a second plus faster. Despite weighing 800 pounds more and having 5 more horsepower. I'm astounded. There is one more feature before we move on that I have to address, and it's this center console, which is a bit weird, I'll be honest. It has holes in it for weight-saving ergonomics, maybe? I don't know, but it has holes in it. Has a 12 volt for reasons, and it has the USB shenanigans. There is a parking brake here, which is actually nice because I couldn't find the parking brake on the Lincoln that I have, but I do have it here. And we get to the touchscreen itself. Now, this has all sorts of navigation and apps and climate and all sorts of things, but if you're tired of all of that and you're very stressed out by that, as anyone over the age of 35 might very well be, I can just go into settings here and change that. So I go settings, just swipe over to display, and then I hit calm screen. There we go. I'm now calm. I'm now relaxed. So it gives me my temperatures and the time. That's it. I am now calmed. My experience is now soothing. You see how calm I am? It's nothing stressful at all. It's going on in the world, all because of that screen. Now, interestingly, if you want to change the temperature on that screen, yeah, it goes back to default. So, I don't really know what the point of it is, but there you go. If you want to be calmed, Ford has given you the answer. And let's move it on to the 2010 Fusion. Now, I talked about this before, and my statement still stands. It is a very solid vehicle, especially for, what is it, $3,500 nowadays? That's incredible value for money. 240 horsepower, 210 torque in a front-wheel drive four-door sedan weighing less than 3,300 pounds. You don't get that very often. You don't get that very often at all, actually. If you were to say, compare the new one to the old one as I'm doing here, I think the best comparison you can draw is the new one is a much more family-friendly, watered-down version of this vehicle. This vehicle is a bit more hardcore, if you will. You see, it doesn't have any money. Hell, it still has a CD player in it. And yet, it is lighter. The steering is not too terrible on the old turning front. And all in all, I think it's an absolutely brilliant vehicle to drive. And it has something the new one will never have. The engine. Now, the new one has a 2-liter turbocharged, as I mentioned previously. That's a very decent enough engine. This one, though, this is a special one. It's a naturally aspirated 3-liter V6 like a Honda NSX. And that means it isn't slow. 0 to 60 takes just 7 seconds, which is as fast as a Fiesta ST, despite weighing half a ton more. It's a serious underdog in the low budget performance market. And then there's the noise of the engine. So if I shift it into manual, yeah, there's a manual option, I'll get to that. We can just shift it down unnecessarily, and then like that. Makes a lot of noise, and since your friends will never expect this car has such a noise, you will scare the hell out of them. Definitely no experience of that in any way. Not one bit. But that also means there is a downside. You see, this naturally aspirated engine makes a considerable amount of power and torque, 240, 210 respectively, which is a lot to go through the front wheels, and it only has 2 2.5s on the front, which is not much, if we're being honest. And that means when you turn the traction control on, or if you turn it off, it doesn't really matter in the long run, you will get mountains of wheel spin. It just kills the acceleration. So theoretically, yes, the 0 to 60 is 7.1 seconds, but if you're actually driving it on a road in the real world, it's probably around 8.5, probably, based on traction loss. Now, of course, that is down to launch and how well you are at controlling the throttle, but the new car is far better than that, simply because of the bigger tires and the four-wheel drive. So this may be a slower car in the streets. but in terms of driving raw feel, it's hard to beat it. It's hard to top this car. And that's why I absolutely love it. Because it is, out of the two, the far better driving car. It is I dare call it a proper driver's car full stop, not just a better driver's car of the two. That's how much I like this car. And that's pretty high praise. There are plenty of cars, heck the new car, with this four-wheel drive and bigger tires, will do 0 to 60 in half a second faster. But this, with that engine and that manual shifting option that doesn't use stupid flappy paddles, it feels like I'm involved with it. It's a more visceral experience. So, if I need to sum up these two cars in a head-to-head, the new Fusion is a much more watered-down, family-friendly four-door that is, a solid choice, not going to shatter any records, not going to do anything too special. But the old Fusion from 2010, now that's a driver's car in disguise. That's what it is. And if I were given a new version of each vehicle, which one would I get? That is a tough question, because the new one has so many more features, has so much more modern technology, is much more comfortable, gives you much more opportunities when you're just enjoying the leisurely drive. But this one's a bit more hardcore. And just for the sake of that performance and that noise and the MPG, while I'm at it, I would have to pick a 2010 Fusion out of the two as the winner. I would have to. I really like the new ones, but this one just blows it out of the water. It's true, I'm sorry. That's not the result I was honestly expecting when I first started doing this test, but it is what we have ended up with.